Thank you for joining us for the first episode of the Napcast. I'm your host, Elias Napier, with co-host Richard Norton. Special guests this evening are Vasu Patel and Adrian Ojeda. Today, we'll be focusing on a tragic event that has scarred the American nation, the Columbine school shooting. This was committed by the two enrolled students, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. On April 20th, 1999, the shooting commenced, resulting in 13 students being killed and dozens of others being injured, before the two fellow students would end their own lives. In this episode, we will be considering how Columbine was shaped by the ignorance of mental health and the failure of gun control laws. Richard?
Thank you, Elias. So first off, I want to mention that even in today's society, people want an immediate answer. They want answers as to why their kids are dying, why these tragedies continue to happen, and how they can fix it and prevent future tragedies. But what people don't seem to understand is that it's not all just black and white. There's no simple, clear answer to it. And there's just so many different aspects that you really need to take into account when trying to understand school shootings in general. In particular being like mental health, for example. Adrian, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. With what we know about the shooters from research, Dylan had severe depression and mood swings. There were even multiple instances where he tended to improve himself and separate himself from his violent tendencies. However, Dylan never received the proper support and help he needed and never got better.
It should also be noted that Eric also had considerable mental problems, as he was a full-blown psychopath. He was cunning, but he also had very violent tendencies. But he was not as well documented. Going off what you said, another important aspect of understanding mental health is realizing the massive effect that the shooting had on the youth at the time across the nation, creating a sort of effect where teenagers similar to Harris and Klebold were almost inspired by their actions and attempted to commit similar atrocities.
I can agree that the massacre was a major cause for the increase in school shootings, but another thing that the shooting caused was an increase in the concern over mental health and how schools in particular affected it. After the shooting, multiple projects and programs were started with the intention to help those with mental health problems in order to prevent future incidents. While the results of the massacre are overwhelmingly negative, it should be noted that it helped move forward the focus on protecting mental health.
That's a good point. The Columbine shooting resulted in multiple important lessons being learned that eventually resulted in major improvements in protecting mental health in and out of school environments and how authorities would handle future threats. Elias, Vasu.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Adrian, for your time. Gun violence is increasing in the U.S. This is no secret. We need stronger laws to stop it, and one of the first steps towards this was the Brady Bill. Vasu?
That's right, Elias. Thank you. The Brady Bill that was passed in 1993, it was a good step in requiring checks from buying guns from licensed dealers. But there was a big problem with this law. While it allowed checks on licensed dealers, it excluded private sales and gun shows. This allowed for dangerous people to get their hands on guns. In fact, study shows that people who buy guns at gun shows or private sales are more likely to be involved in crimes.
You're completely right. And I've seen these studies, and you're right. Strong countries that have stronger background checks have fewer gun violence. This is shown through Sweden and Japan. They have stricter gun laws, as well as incredibly lower rates of gun violence when compared to the U.S.
I agree to this. While some might say that our government should increase the strictness of our laws, some might say that it might infringe on our right to bear arms. But what I say to that is, it's not about taking away guns from people who know how to use guns or are safe with them. It's about keeping them out of the hands of people who have criminal records or people who have poor mental health. Like, for example, in the Columbine shooting, the two students did not have very stable mental health.
Exactly, and the boys were able to get their firearm from one of their friends who had acquired it at a gun show. If there are regulations in place, this whole incident could have been prevented.
I agree. We need to have stronger laws to prevent guns from ending up in the wrong hands.
So the Brady Bill is a great start, but what more can we do?
I think that school districts, parents, and students need to look at better ways to improve gun safety in schools, and our government needs to look at better alternatives to keep guns out of students who obviously do not need to have guns because they're too young, and from other criminals outside the school who could pose a threat to the school. And in the midst of increasing school violence in our nation, this needs to be an immediate action.
Well, thank you, Vasu. Also want to thank, once again, Adrian and Richard for your time. Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Napcast. Have a blessed evening, and be safe.